view from the Town End time then, and as Reading prepare to host Ipswich Town on Saturday, I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by Benjamin Bloom from the Blue Monday podcast. How's it going, Benjamin?
Well, this is going to be a bit of a pity party, isn't it, Ollie? A Reading fan
Yeah,
talking to an Ipswich fan. I mean, you're slightly less pitiful than us, but hey, bottom of the table, mighty clash coming up. No, I'm doing fine, thanks, Ollie. I'm very pleased to be on.
I'm glad. I mean, I was going to say, I mean, with no offense to Ted at all, I mean, it's quite nice to talk to a fan who actually below us on the table for once this season. We've been talking to a load of fans, who obviously way above us, but I mean, I'll start with sort of the season so far. And it's a very loaded question, but sort of what has gone wrong for Ipswich so far this season? As you said, bottom of the table, 5 points from safe, and just one win all season.
The simple answer, and I'm not taking the Mickey, is literally everything. I mean, when we say what went wrong for Ipswich, what the question really is what went wrong for Paul Hurst, who
Yeah.
has now been and gone. And it was literally everything. He turned up at the club. The first thing that went wrong is he got to the playoff final, so the appointment was delayed, and however that affected recruitment or pre-season training. So he was behind even when he arrived. Then all of a sudden, Adam Webster goes, David McGoldrick goes, all the loan players go, all the short contracts go. And then as the season's starting, off goes Martin Waghorn, and then on transfer deadline day, Joe Garner. So all the players that got us to our mighty 12th place finish last year were sold from Hurst. He then bought in players he knew from the lower leagues, two from Shrewsbury, two from Accrington, one from Peterborough,
Mm.
and one of those so far has worked out, Gwion Edwards, in any shape or form. And then the big thing was on the loan window, income, Jordan Graham, John Walters and Matthew Pennington. Matthew Pennington's exempt from any criticism at centre half. He's a very good player. But then Hurst lost his nerve and he went from his system that he'd started to build. And, you know, he lost the team. He dropped the player of the year in goal. Lost the dressing room in record super quick time and was out after 15 games. The analogy I've given, Ollie, when you say what went wrong, is he's like a gambler who lost a bet and then doubled down to try and win back his money. And
Yeah.
every time he doubled down, he just lost again, and it just made things more and more unmanageable. So yeah, it's been absolutely rotten, but hopefully we're at the start of something new now under Lambert.
Yeah, I mean, listening to you talking now, obviously, about the struggle sort of back in the summer and the recruitment, obviously, heading into the campaign without Mick McCarthy in charge for the first time in 6 years, were you sort of expecting a struggle sort of going into the season? Obviously, you spoke about the issues with sort of players coming up from League One, Paul Hurst perhaps not being quite experienced enough in this division.
Well, as a football fan, in August, you always assume the best and you're always
Yeah, there's
optimistic, aren't
high
you?
levels of optimism. Yeah,
Absolutely. So what we'd wanted, I think everyone at Ipswich was just a bit bored, basically, that we'd had McCarthy, and there was, of course, you know, he got us up from the relegation positions and got us into playoffs in 14-15. But the previous two seasons had been, the previous three seasons he'd finished seventh and then 16th, which was our lowest finish for half a century, and then 12th. And everyone wanted a change. We get this young up and coming manager and these quote hungry players, and it was very different to what McCarthy did. So yeah, I was optimistic. I was like, no, this is new ideas, and you know the new players can come up. But the conceived wisdom is that too many players came at once, and to expect them to all step up at the same time whilst all your best players from the previous season go. When you look at it now, it was madness, and it and it proved that way. So I was optimistic, but wrongly so.
yeah.
I'm not afraid to admit.
There's been sort of a lot of talk in the media sort of about Mick McCarthy and sort of saying you don't know how good you've got it until you've got him until he's gone. Then I've I've sort of been a little bit wary of that statement just purely because I've sort of noticed that the last couple of seasons Ipswich have gone a little bit stale, perhaps a little bit boring. I mean, obviously you got that 4-0 win towards the end of last season after at the Malaysia after McCarthy had gone. But you spoke about it a little bit there, but sort of what obviously looking back in hindsight now, do you think McCarthy staying would have been a better option, or do you think the club sort of did need that fresh start?
No, the two things. This is the problem with the outside media, particularly the national media. The two things aren't particularly linked. So McCarthy's contract came up, and by mutual consent with the owner, he agreed to go. McCarthy had to go. It had gone stale. Attendances
Yeah,
were dropping. League
yeah,
position was dropping. Unfortunately, we hired completely the wrong guy, and the recruitment was totally wrong. And you'll know from your point of view as a Reading fan that you'll have people quoting at you the whole time. Oh, Stam got you in the playoffs, da da da.
yeah.
You were nearly in the Premier League, but you know from watching it every week that all the stats
It's
made
not
it a
quite
bit.
that simple. Yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't quite that simple. All the stats made the playoff position a bit fortuitous. Kermorgant had the season of his life, didn't he?
yeah.
A few things went your way, and then all of a sudden you weren't surprised by that drop off. Whereas everyone from the outside goes, "Oh, we got you in the playoffs."
Yeah,
However many months. So you'll know exactly what we're going through, being a small to average size club, won't you? And people don't always know from the outside. And unfortunately, where Ipswich are, and probably with Reading, Mick McCarthy and Jaap Stam are bigger stories than Ipswich and Reading are. You know,
yeah.
the national guys would rather write about Jaap Stam and Mick McCarthy. So unfortunately, they're still obsessed with him, and even worse for us, if Sheffield Wednesday lose on Friday, it's all going to be piling on McCarthy to Sheffield Wednesday, and then we'll have the lovely circus of him coming back to Portman Road later in the season.
Yeah, I think he's stated his desire to take that job, doesn't he? I think potentially
Ollie, he
Mick
stated his
McCarthy, but
desire to work anywhere, anyone who will bloody hire him. He was,
there's
you
been
know,
rumours about him potentially replacing Paul Clement at Reading, but I'm not too sure how I'd feel about that one. But
wow.
you mentioned Paul Hurst and how he didn't last. He obviously lasted 14, 15 matches in the job, but replaced by Paul Lambert, former Norwich manager, of course. He drew his first match in charge home to Preston last weekend, and obviously he has been only in the job for a couple of weeks. But what have your first impressions been of him? Does he seem like a good enough manager to sort of try and keep you up?
Again, optimism abounds. We hope so. He's certainly. In terms of the level of football he worked at, you would
Yeah,
argue he's a higher caliber candidate than Hurst was. Not that we were worried about that when Hurst was arrived. And he seems to be doing the opposite of everything that Hurst did. And um, there's somewhat of a conspiracy theory that he knew he was getting the job a few weeks ago, and he's been watching, and he knew what he was going to do straight away. He's brought back all of the experienced players that are left. He's taken a lot of the Hurst signings out of the firing line, and just not to say that they won't come back, but
yeah,
so he's just immediately gone for experienced players. The ones with the most career appearances are going to be in the team at the Majeski on Saturday. The other thing he's done, he's been very, very overt in trying to win the fans over. Very complimentary, spoken all the time about the bond between players and fans and getting it together. And even today, a very smart move. He had George Burley, Terry Butcher, and John Walk down to the training ground as if to say, look, I think the previous regime thought they came in and knew it all, but I want to absorb the club. He's
yeah,
making all the right noises, Ollie, but you know as well as I do, if if he doesn't win games and pick up
yeah.
points, then you can make all the right noises you like, but the results talk, don't they?
Yeah. Looking ahead to this weekend, then what's sort of feeling in the Ipswich camp towards Reading? I mean, this is where I'd usually sort of ask whether you pay much attention to our season so far. But I mean, I suppose you've probably always had one eye on how we've got on with the fact we're only sort of two places above you.
Well, and with my championship YouTubing hat on, I've actually seen two of your games this season as well.
Okay.
I was at the opening day against Derby,
Derby, yeah.
where you went behind, got back into the game and lost fortuitously. And then I was at your midweek game against Norwich, where you went behind, got back into the game and then
Yeah.
lost fortuitously. I think what I'd do is I'd throw the question back to you, because from what I can see, and this is the hope from an Ipswich fan's point of view, that these two wins against Millwall and who did you beat? It was Bristol City, wasn't it?
Bristol City.
the stats were massively
Yes,
against you.
to the
Yeah,
weekend.
so we're hoping that those two wins were as lucky as they looked in terms of you being outshot. I know it doesn't always work that way. So the hope from our point of view is that we get the
Yeah.
soft Reading that I saw concede that late goal at home to Derby and concede immediately after they scored against Norwich, and that the stats were on
No.
point there
Yeah.
against Millwall and Bristol City, and that we can get something, and hopefully you're easier to score against than some of the teams that we come up against.
Well, I mean, well, that sort of define the stats and the odds is sort of exactly how we sort of made our way through that playoff season 2 years ago. I think some people I've spoken to sort of saying that these two wins against Bristol City and the one against Mill very much felt like Yapstam wins because
Right.
we grinded that result out despite not perhaps playing the best. But I mean, we've had sort of indifferent home form over the start of the season. So we got that win against Bristol City, the win against Millwall as well. And then the game that you saw against Norwich was a really, really poor performance, and against QPR a couple of weeks later as well. A side who obviously were sort of down there with us at the time, but then obviously have moved on since then. But that was a really poor performance as well. If Ipswich are to grind out a win at the weekend, who do you think the key player will be?
That's hard to say because in Lambert's first game, he went for this 4-3-3 or 4-1-4-1, however you want to say it's configured, where it was very a midfield designed to stodge it up, a bit of pace out wide, and Jordan Roberts, who is he's not a forward, but he's the biggest guy, the biggest guy left up front. I would hope if we were going to beat you in a footballing way, it would be Gwion Edwards down one of the sides, maybe Freddie Sears
Yeah,
down the other with some pace and some dribbling. What's more likely would be batten down the hatches and keep it tight and a set play, which sounds very, very Mick McCarthy, doesn't it? But we kind of need that at the moment. What I'd ask you though, Ollie, is what about Maite? Because I saw him playing. He played in midfield, I'm certain of it, against Norwich, and seemed to have been moved forward and scored 4 goals for you. But is he going to be fit for Saturday? And has this
yeah.
been a guy moved up front, a bit of a revelation?
It's very touch and go. I mean, obviously he was on loan at Sochaux in Ligue 2 last season. Came in the year before under Yapstam, sort of didn't play that much. I think he only scored once in that first season, and then obviously went out on loan last season. Come back in and certainly played a lot more, I think, than anyone sort of expected him to this season. But I mean, in that first season, he was always sort of seen as a winger. And certainly, I don't think anyone really saw him. I mean, not necessarily in midfield, but I don't think anyone really saw him playing straight down the middle this season. Obviously, we've got Sam Baldock, who's more of a natural striker. But in fact, when both Mate and Baldock have played, Baldock's been the one that's gone over to the left, and Mate's the one who's played down the middle. Obviously, and with John Dudley Bodvarsson, who's I think still the top scorer this season, he's now out probably until at least December time, maybe even the new year. You'll probably likely see Mate play down the middle. But yeah, I mean, he went off. I mean, obviously he scored against Bristol City at the weekend, but then came off around the half-hour mark. So I think Paul Clement was quite optimistic because I think he got that injury sort of maybe around the 15-minute mark and still managed to carry on playing for another 15 minutes or so. So I think Paul Clement's quite optimistic that he might be able to make the weekend. But yeah, I mean, if he doesn't play, it'll probably be Sam Baldock down the middle. But we've got a plethora of wingers, really, likes of Sonny Aluko and Gareth McCleary, Josh Sims on loan from Southampton, who's somehow only got 2 starts so far this season. But yeah, I think you would hope that Mate would be fit. Obviously, he's in great form. Got the 2 goals against Millwall, scored again against Bristol City, and then scored away to Birmingham as well, I think. So yeah, no, so he's certainly the man in form for us. Yeah.
No, he's the worry from Aaron, and that's what Ipswich are trying to find. They're trying to find who's going to be the guy to put 4 goals in 4 games or 5 games or whatever it's done. Because, I mean, look, it's not hard to find stats that say you're bad when you're bottom of the league and you've only won 1 in 15. But particularly the attacking stats, they're very, very bad. Not even creating chances, not getting shots on goal. So I think you're going to see a very, very straightforward, simple, back to basics, hold your team shape, make your tackles, run more than the other team. That's
Yeah.
the basics, and we'll see where we go from there. It's certainly going to be a bit of a battle, I think.
Yeah, I mean, games between two sides in the relegation zone are hardly ever classics, I think. But what's your score prediction for the weekend then, Benjamin?
Oh God, hopefully a really muggy 1-0 or something. But
Yeah,
we've just been so, and I know Liam Kelly is a good set play taker, and we've been
yeah,
so bad from set plays. If I told you it was like over 10 goals from set plays, you'd say, "Nah, that's
yeah.
got to be wrong." But I don't know the exact stat, but we just concede an absolute ton of goals from set
So do we
plays.
actually. I think we conceded about. I think it was 5 games in a row. We conceded the goal from a corner earlier on in the season. So
Well, there you go, Ollie. It'll probably be 1-1, and both goals will come
both
from
goals from a corner. Yeah,
corners. Look, we're a draw. I know it sounds ridiculous. A draw isn't that much use to us. We've got
no,
West Brom coming up after the international break, and Bristol City a couple of home games. They need a 3-pointer somehow. So in any way they can, and Reading are the sort of lowliest team. No, obviously we're lowlier. No offence, but you look at the potential to actually win a game,
yeah,
and this is the one. So a draw isn't really much use. Whereas I think Ipswich have got more to lose here than Reading have, given Reading have had those 2 wins
yeah,
in recent weeks. Hopefully we can snatch something, and I just hope they understand the significance of 2 weeks off and difficult games afterwards, that they
yeah.
really do need to go after this game and really have a good crack at it. But easier said than done when there's not much confidence in your bottom of the league.
Yeah, I mean, it's still make or break really for Paul Clement. Obviously, I think there's still plenty of reports that if he loses this game, that he could still lose his job. But I'm going to go for a Reading win. Just about, I'm going to say probably 1-0 to us. But we've had very mixed results against you sort of recently. I think we've obviously the 5-1 win in 15-16, obviously that 4-0 defeat where we completely collapsed last season. So
Well, Ollie, it was funny. Up until that 4-0, that 4-0 was like 10 years
yeah, it was,
10
yeah.
years in the making. We'd never ever won at the
Tedeschi.
Majeski since it was no, there was one. I think John Stead scored one, and there was even one under when you had Coppell and we had Joe Royal, where we took the lead on 89 minutes and you scored on. No, I think Inge Marston scored for you
Yeah,
on
yeah, that rings a bell.
yeah
Yeah,
91 minutes. So that 4-0 was long time in the making. But I have to say, I've never seen a collapse like that
yeah.
at the end. That was bizarre.
It was completely catastrophic.
And Ollie, I have to say this, and my good lady will back me up on this. When we took the centre at 3-0, or you took the centre and we won the ball, I
Yeah,
said 15 seconds before, I said we're gonna score now. They have completely lost it. You know, when you can just tell, and all our players were like, they've lost
yeah,
it, and all your players
yeah.
were like, get me out of here. So yeah, a very very bizarre ending to the last game, but you're not going to see you're not going to see 4 goals from Ipswich this time. What one or two will make most of the Ipswich fans happy, I think.
You mean I certainly hope it's not that. I mean, I was just left laughing in the home end for that game.
Well, but it was absurd,
because
wasn't it?
you're left with little else to do but just simply laugh, because I think Reading's players were falling over the place. They were passing the ball back to Ipswich. Yeah, it was completely bizarre, really. But my thanks then to you, Benjamin, for joining me on the View from the Town End. All the best on Saturday and for the rest of the season. I'm sure we'll both be struggling.
Thanks,
down
Ollie.
there.
And if I may, if you want an excellently balanced and impartial review of the game, do check out the Blue Monday podcast on Sunday night, and I'll be doing a match review on YouTube, completely unbiased, I promise. So do check that out, and definitely Reading fans welcome.
Fantastic stuff. Yeah, I mean, these opposition views are seemingly going down quite well. I think fans quite like sort of knowing the thoughts of the opposition. So definitely go and check that out after the game. Maybe if we've lost, we might not want to go and see sort of the gloating Ipswich fans, but certainly I think a win for both sides would be much appreciated. But it is now time then for me and Tom to discuss Reading's team news ahead of Saturday and pick our preferred lineups for the game.